shoots their wounded.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, ultimately we had, early on in our venture with Catalyst, before there was a Church Misfit podcast, there was a ministry misfit kind of collection of folks, and we loved it. It was thriving, but not everybody, because it didn't fit the mold of traditional church, not everybody saw it that way. So, over time, a voice began to raise up that didn't agree with the way we would love on people and how we would go about ministry. And so to us, it felt like a failure at the time, because it did force us to make a decision. Are we going to be here and conform, or are we going to be who we truly are? And then when we separated, ultimately, it gave us the freedom to be who we truly were, and opened so many more doors for us. And it was a good thing, but it felt like a failure at the time.
It'll make you wrestle with what's true. Like, am I being true to what God's called me to do, or just settling, like, fear of God or fear of man?
Yeah, 100%. So take us into some of your world. Yeah, what's your biggest failure, Kyle?
Welcome. Yeah, well, I don't know if I have an answer for that right now, but I think, you guys are talking about it. I think the biggest failures that we can talk about, especially as leaders, are the interpersonal ones. Like, it's way easier for me to talk about the failures that I've had or been through, because I tried something, because I was innovating something or like trying something brand new. But the more painful failures are actually the ones of like, well, because I'm doing these other things, like, what does that do to the relationships that I'm in? And I fail all the time in my relationships. And that is, I think, the painful part of failure. That is the piece that I don't want to talk about or think about or process through. Like, no. Like, so, the biggest, I think, failures that I've been through, I'm Enneagram 9. Okay. So peacemaker, total, like, scaredy cat of conflict. Like, not just because how I doubt if I'm going to be able to handle this conversation. Like, am I confident enough, and do I trust this relationship enough that we'll be okay at the end of this? Or if we do have to part ways, like, what's going to happen, and that fear of like loss. So because of that, my greatest failures, especially as a leader, are really like avoiding conflict, or it actually keeps me from being who I want to be. Because I just, and I put in a lot of work and a lot of effort into like tiptoeing around and not actually leading, or not actually like investing in a relationship the way that this person deserves me to. And so it's like I just bench myself, I sideline myself, instead of just, it's complete opposite of what this mentality that we're talking about in the Excellent Failures podcast, which is like, just go for it, try it. Who does this person need you to be? And just go for it. I mean, what do you have to lose? Like, you're going to learn something from it and hopefully be better. But in my head and in my heart, it's like, that is the hardest thing for me to do. So it's greater failure for me is like, just if I just sit out. Or, we talked about this on the podcast episode for Excellent Failures. So if you listen to our show, you might hear the same story twice. But when I was working in college ministry at a church with young adults, we would do Sunday night dinners. I don't know, church misfits. I attracted very strange people into our ministry. Like, we were not the pretty church. We were not the pretty people. This was like,
we used to call ours the circus.
Well, okay.
Greatest showman. I feel you.
Perfect. So in the town we were living in, like, the university I worked at was like the stepchild of the other university, liberal arts. Okay, so whatever. And so free dinner, we'd have 20, 30 people over. We're gonna do dinner, and we're going to talk about, like, create space for God to work in some form or fashion, creatively, whatever. Well, there's this guy, a young adult coming over, and he doesn't always fit in with everybody else at school, socially, just different kind of guy. Well, out of nowhere, we find out he's dating this woman that he met through work, who's like 10, 15 years older and a whole other life stage. And then now she's coming to dinner and bringing all these friends with her. And so, like, our young adult ministry, which is clearly focused on providing community for a specific set of students, and now it's getting crashed by these people from the greater community who I I don't know why I think they were there for the free food and whatever, but taught me a lot about my relationship with this student and his kind of mental health, emotional health, where he's at in life. And anyways, what did Kyle do? Like, it's super awkward. People's like are not wanting to come because like it's getting crashed.
Now it's a 20s, 30s, 40s group.
It's betraying our purpose, and therefore like other people are super uncomfortable. It's weird. So what did Kyle do? Like, super failure. You just met her, Jess. Jess, you gotta help me. You gotta fix this problem. Like, you are better with people. Like, go in there and talk to these people and just help them understand this is not the right time or place. But if you guys, how do you navigate that? There's
down the street.
The adult
so many of us have been there. Yes.
And so I'm freaking out, but I lost. I failed that student that day because one, I didn't love him enough to like just sit him down and talk to him, and I failed myself. And Jessica, thankfully, she stepped in. She handled it great. She teases me about that situation still today of like, come on, Kyle, like, do something, like, have the hard conversation. But at the end of the day too, what I realized, like, that failure there was, now that student is going to look to her as more of a leader and influencer in his life, and not me, because I'm not the one who's willing to like have a really hard or just awkward conversation with you about like who you're running around with and when's it appropriate, when's it not, like all that good stuff. So that's just one that's kind of blatant to me of like an opportunity where I just pieced out, or I was willing to sit out because it was just uncomfortable.
Do you think there's like a common denominator? You're analyzing for this podcast. You're analyzing all these stories of failures and the resiliency to be able to push through a failure and learn from it rather than quit. So what do you think sets apart somebody who does just that? They actually analyze and learn from their failure versus, quit, right? How do you push forward when you experience something like that?
Well, I think you have to be in a culture that encourages it, for one thing.
Okay.
Like, I don't think anybody else on staff that I worked with, unless my frame of mind the next day, the Monday morning when I show up to staff meeting, that's not the first story I'm sure I was telling everybody. I probably told them what was going on, and I had got Jessica to help me. But nobody at that table was like, well, Kyle, let's talk about why you didn't go have that conversation. Like, I'm sure that nobody there was like, oh, like, red flag. Jessica, I'm great that it's handled. Like, we were just outcome driven, and not like who was going to look at me and be like, dude, you missed an opportunity.
Develop you as a leader.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's really all about who am I surrounding myself with, and here at MSB and in my position with Chris and my team, it's like we don't let each other get away with those small things of like. It's so much easier at church or in business to focus on, well, what are we producing versus who are we becoming along the way. And if I get so driven on our results or our purpose and betray, the development of my character and who I want to be tomorrow, then it's really hard to view those failures as excellent when I'm not treating it that way. Like I'm just quitting.
Yeah. I think you can already tell that this is going to be a podcast here that's going to really frame up some of your experiences in life and give you a different perspective. So I love this. Do you think competitiveness plays into this in any way? I only said that because I hate losing. Hate losing. And so when I fail at something, I want to know why I failed and how to not do it again, right? Because if I resign to the loss, I lost. Otherwise, I can get back up and keep fighting. So I don't know if you need to have some sort of, competitiveness in you to come through and embrace these failures.
Yeah, whether that's interpersonal, like I just don't want to lose. I don't want to be in this position again.
Right.
I don't want to settle.
Yeah.
Like I love that you had the awareness to be able to say like, yeah, I do this all the time. I outsource all conflict to my wife. She's a redheaded high school wrestler. She's great. She was made for this. But for me to grow in my leadership, I've got to step into some of these conversations.
Right.
You have the awareness to recognize that and then respond and grow from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, whether it's interpersonal or as an organization, like we're committed to this vision. This is where we're going, and I have to do this because I'm committed to that.
Yep.
You know, competitiveness.
I think there is a competitive piece to that. You know, I want to work. I want to surround myself with people
Right.
who are competitive. Like I want to win.
Yep.
Whatever it is, life,
Yep.
church, home, family, business. Like we are going to win.
Yep.
I want that mentality. But you know, I also have to deal with like when I think about failure, is it finite? Like failure to me, it can be so finite. It can feel so like definitive. Like that's failed. It's over. Game over. You're dead. You know, not your lives are over. You're spent. Start from scratch. Versus, I think what we're really talking about is like, especially relationally, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. If I think of it that way, then I failed that student in that moment, and I thought of it like, oh, I'm screwed. Like that's it.
I love that because like failure feels final. Like it feels like that's the end all. But really, it is really finite. Like it's just a moment. You overcome it and you get better because of it. The relationship grows afterwards. Your business moves forward. Like so small. But the fear of failure is really what messes me up. Like I'm so worried about what could happen that I never actually get to a position where anything will happen.
Okay, so I want you guys to check out this podcast because I really think it's going to be inspirational and equipping at the same time. So it's Excellent Failures. You guys, and I know you're getting set up. You have a handle for this on social media yet?
We do. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. It's easier to say the handle on Instagram.
Yeah.
At Excellent Failures.
Okay. Excellent. At Excellent Failures.
Excellent Failures. Yep.
Okay. So
you can look us up there. We're on all the platforms,
All the social
where you
medias.
find podcasts. You subscribe to your shows. You can check us out all there.
Awesome.
MySpace.
Yeah, my top 8.
Yeah.
You know
Are
it.
you
my top 8.
Are you on TikTok yet?
Personally,
No.
I'm playing around with it, but Excellent Failures is not. But
TikTok is right catalog.
Come
of
on.
my failures.
Come on, like a TikTok of Excellent Failures. This is destined to succeed.
I love epic.
Can you
fails.
capture these in 16 seconds?
I like where this is going.
Yeah.
We can definitely play with that. We can work with it. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Uh-huh.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much
Yeah, guys.
for your time.
It's been
So,
fun.
yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right. Till next time.